editing live stream where you can submit your images before the stream starts, ideally, and then I edit them here for you live using, of course, DxO Photolab 8. It's my favorite editor and editor of choice for all of my images. Even though I have Lightroom and Photoshop, I still pre-process everything with DxO before using those, which is pretty rare. Um, that said, I am an affiliate for DxO, so I do have a 15% discount code for the viewers here if you'd like to get started with DxO Photolab or any of their products. And your support is greatly appreciated through donations, super chats, etc. Because I do run my live streams this month. I am running them this month ad-free to see how that goes. And if there's lots of support that way, I have no reason to put ads on, right? It makes for a better viewing experience for all of us. And again, support is greatly appreciated. So, uh, oh, this thing. I put a video up last night about what happened, but basically I was running away from a swarm of wasps and I fell down. And I got several stings to go along with that. And God, I bruised my rib cage pretty bad. So I'm taking, I just took some ibuprofen. It kind of tempered the pain quite a bit. But if you see me flinch a little bit sometimes, it's because I might have a micro fracture in here too. I mean, I didn't bother to go see the doctor about it because I fractured a rib, I don't know, 20 years ago. And all they did was give me Tylenol. So I just, I just didn't bother. Anyhow, so I'm gonna just power through this, be a man, right? And do the editing. But if oh, there was an ad. Let me double check. Make sure I turned it off. I'm sure I did. Uh, because I do not want any ads on this. Go to the live. Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. There, now it's off. I thought I turned it off. Okay, we should be good now. Uh, all right. Um, yeah, so it's this side. This this is really sensitive. I just scraped all the skin off on this side because I face planted right into the cement and I hit my rib cage pretty hard. You don't feel like rib stuff like until the next day. I was feeling great yesterday, but this morning I'm kind of um yeah, I'm gonna pause every now and then because of the pain here, but I'll be all right. Okay, all that said, let me arrange my windows and we'll get started. Um and I guess I can close this window and we should be good. So we'll start here with the first one. This one is looks like Anthony Coleman. And okay, really nice little landscape, seascape type scene here. I love this ship. And I'm going to walk through my thought process of my workflow editing software, but of course there's some unique tools in DxO that I'll be using. And first thing I think about is the overall exposure and composition. So the exposure seems fine, nothing I need to adjust here on a global basis. And then the composition, with wide angle lenses, I typically like, and this is equivalent 40 millimeters, so it's not that wide, but I don't like a lot of negative space. Generally, my photos, my particular taste, and it's all subjective, is fill the frame with the subject. Uh, and the subject can be a single object, or it can be, sort of a combination of things that as a whole make up a single type scene, I guess is the way I would put it. But we have a nice level horizon. We have some very dramatic clouds here, which I'm going to try and bring out. And I think I don't know if I really need this because to me the subject here is right here, this sailboat, and not the sky or the landscape so much. These are just sort of backdrops. I also like to think about layering and trying to create a perceived three dimensions in a scene. And I also like balance, where if you were to put the image on a scale or a point, is it going to shift one way or the other? And balance can be either, objects in the scene or it can be just the lighting, right? I don't want it too dark or too light on either side. Uh, so again, it's just my style and my subjective, it's very subjective. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this scene. So let me apply a basic preset first. And I'll make a video about my presets, but this is basically optical corrections and a little bit of sharpening. DxO is very smart when it does the sharpening and optical corrections, and it does a really good job because it's very specific to the lens and camera combination that is presented. So we don't get just the general sharpening. We get a very dynamic, intelligent sharpening to the image without uh, sharpening other areas of the image that don't need to be. Thus, a lot of sharpening tools, they can make images look too crispy or too, uh, overly sharpened. Whereas DxO, you can do that, but generally the default settings will give you a nice sharpening of the image without making it look over sharpened. Okay, and then composition, I think, uh, usually I go into cropping, and I feel like this would do really well with a wide crop. Let's try 16 by 7. And yeah, I think that looks really good. So let's just balance this a little bit so that I have some layers. So I have the foreground here, which is just the water, the midground here, which is the subject of the sailboat, and then this landscape to some extent. And then the background is just the sky as a backdrop. I may even come up a little higher like this. And I think that works pretty well. It's a little bit too much negative space here on the left side. So what I might do, let's go back to a 16 by 9 and just come in and just balance the space up here and the space down here of the sailing mast so that that's kind of equal and bring that in. So this feels a little more balanced to me, right? Because we have a lot of weight here with the landscape rising, and then we have the sailboat here. So now I just have to decide what areas of the image I want to, uh, let me expand this out if that's possible. What areas of the image do I want to highlight? I really like the colors back in here. There's a little bit of red. So these will make nice accents to the landscape. That'll go with the kind of the red buoys here. So a hint of yellow and maybe some red over here. That's also a nice accent. And this looks, that's kind of a brown. So red flag here looks like. So I think we'll go with that. So I'm going to highlight some of the reds, a little bit of reflection in water. Also push these greens a little bit. And I don't want to lose sort of the softness that we have in the background. I think that looks very natural and adds to the scene in terms of the feeling and the mood that you get from it. So let's try some local adjustments here. I could probably get away with a global push on the reds because there's very little red in the scene, but the problem is I have to amplify or saturate the reds a little differently throughout the image because they're not all the same saturation. Like the red buoys down there are. I'm going to tighten up the chroma mask just a touch. And in this area here, I only like to do plus or minus 5 or 10 generally. I'll use a lot more sometimes when the scene is very low contrast in terms of color, but overall, it's a little red thing there. And that's what's nice about DxO is these tools have masking built right into them, and I think it's very intuitive. I'm gonna push this yellow. I should make a separate one for that, but it's only one spot, so you'll see how I get to that. This might be red here. It's not really, but I just want to kind of balance. And this is not really red. This is more of a brown, but we'll try and accentuate that a bit. Okay, so let me get an overall look at the accents here. I think that's fine. And I don't need to accent this one. It's already very, very strong. So I'm going to go down here to the colors and I'm going to select the red. And I might push it a little bit into the yellows and a little bit into the purple magenta area. And let's just crank the saturation. Yeah, that's making it more visible. Very, very subtle. But if I were to, I might have to back this off a bit. So I'm not seeing I'm not, okay, that color, I'm gonna have to spread a bit more. Okay, that color, very little color in that spot. So it's not really, it's not really doing much, but yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe just add a tiny bit of luminance and add a little more saturation. And remember, I have a yellow one over here, so I'm just spreading the color wheel into the yellow so that this yellow spot gets added to the thing. And I'm going to spread more into the magentas. All right. All right, let's work on the greens. Uh, because that was the other color that was very dominant in this scene. Let me crank this up just a tad. And we'll just hit some of the green areas. Make it in here. I make that a little smaller. Yeah, the color is very, very soft up in here. Very low contrast color, but that's okay. Let's see what we can do. Maybe, yeah, over here as well. And let me spread that out. Okay. So I'm just going to select the greens. Just push that and maybe add a little brightness. I'm going to shift it a little bit warmer because I can shift the color here, as you can see, but I don't want to do that much. Maybe just a little bit warmer that way. I'm going to back off. Okay, I missed one of the red spots. Let me go back down here. I just noticed this area here. Let's see, why is this not? Yeah, that's not really red. It's just sort of a gray, actually. All right, that's fine. Now I'm gonna desaturate this one buoy, and because this is just a little bit too strong, so I'll just do a global pull and maybe make it a little darker. Yeah, that matches the other one a little better. Okay, let's add a little brightness to the boat. So I'm gonna go in here, and I see Larry's. Larry, how are you, man? It's been forever. Larry 1958. So good to see you. And I'm gonna tighten up the luma in this case. I mean, it's good to see everyone here. I love seeing everyone here, but Larry, I've not seen in a while, or I haven't noticed. Let's just brighten that up a bit more, maybe a little in the shadows, and then push the highlights. So when I do my select the tones, I like to see a nice line here. So it looks as natural as possible, at least to me. So I'm going to go back and back this off a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of micro contrast and maybe a touch of clear view. Now we don't really need that there. All right. I might need a little more push in the shadows. Let me try. I'm going to tighten this one up. All right, that's looking better. A little bit of a pull here, a little extra there and there. All right, that looks good. And all right, good. Now let's work on sort of the negative space here, the clouds and the water. Water, I generally like to be darker than the sky. So I'm going to start right about there and just graduate. Oops, I need to do plus here to make a new control point. Otherwise, it's going to duplicate the settings of the last control point or the current one. So move that up. And I'm going to add clear view first and then pull the blacks in like this. And a little bit on the shadows. And I think we're good there. Uh, Good to see you, Marco. All right. And then, yeah, the water, maybe do a global pull. Let me get off of that boat a little bit. Just very gradual into the boat. Okay. And let's see. If I move the eyedropper anywhere, it's not making much difference. Let's do a linear pull from here. Okay, good. That looks good. All right. And then let's do one more for the sky. Sometimes I get like this weird artifacting on the tools, but it snaps away after a moment. Uh, let's not hit the landscape too hard. So I want to maintain sort of that softness. And I'll do the same thing here. Some clear view, and let's give a little push to the highlight. Oops, not that much. Just a little push to the highlights and a pull on the blacks and some micro contrast to give it a little more bite in the clouds like that. And then I'm going to add a touch of warmth. Let's see, we're at 67. So I like to stay within 500 Kelvin when I'm adjusting white balance, particularly when I'm doing local adjustments. So I don't want to go above 72. Otherwise, it might look a little unnatural there. Actually, let's pull the highlights in a little bit, see what that does. No, I'm going to move the eyedropper up to the brighter part. There we go. That's giving me the effect that I want. And then, uh, okay, I'm just going to take a break here and take a look at sort of before and after. So the boat's a little bit too bright, but I like everything else. So I'm going to go back to the boat and just do a linear pull like that. Okay. Rather than adjusting all the sliders individually, I think that works. Maybe even give it uh, a little bit of warmth, just around 72. Okay, let me take a quick look. Okay, a little more on that boat. Uh, let's go this way. I feel like I'm doing something with this a little smaller, this a little smaller. All right. Um, I think I'll call it here. So let me export so that we can see the changes. We'll go to the original folder, turn off the resizing, sRGB for exporting. And let's go back. So we'll give that a moment. While that's processing, usually the first one can take a while sometimes, but then it's only like 10 or 15 seconds after that. Let me just scroll through the chat. Oh, Jeff is here. John, Roger, good to see you guys. And I'm going to edit like 2 or 3 images at a time and then go back to the chat section and check and answer any questions. So I'll let you know. But let's let's reset this one, set this as a reference, and then compare here. So here's the original on the left, and here's my edit on the right. So it's a very, very subtle change, I think, overall. It's primarily in the cropping and then just tempering the highlights and negative space a little bit. Uh, I could do a global change on the white balance, make it just a little bit warmer because the image is very cool. But I think this looks fine in terms of white balance. So there's the slider. That's the before, and that's the after. So very nice. Okay. Let's go back and we have a puffin. Okay. Wow. This looks really good. So let's see what we can recover. just a hair out of focus on the beak, but we'll see what we can do. So I'm going to crop in. So I applied a basic preset first, and let me back off. I like this green here. I think it complements the puffin. Let me let me try maybe a square crop and see if I can maintain something like this. Just simple rule of thirds here and a little bit of a diagonal. Yeah, I think that works. I like this green spot. All right, so I'm gonna try and bring out the eyes and beak a little bit. Uh, there's my local tool. Just gonna add a drop here. Just add some clear view and micro contrast. There's not enough eye there. We'll do the same thing on the beak. Let's, no, the beak needs its own. Let's see if we can, maybe a little bit up here. No, let's come back to that. Okay, let's just do a pull on the blacks. Yeah, that's coming out nicely. We'll add some micro contrast. Okay, and then let's accentuate a little bit of the speculars here. So I'm going to just push the highlights maybe a little bit right there. Mm, make it tighter. Okay. Let me see. We'll make these a little bit tighter. A little micro contrast. There we go. All right. So what I'm going to do now is just give a little bit of a vignette, but in a little different way. So I'm going to just drop in control point here and expand it. Okay, I'm going to invert this and drop the chroma and luma to 0. Let me see, I can probably come in a little tighter here. And I'm just going to pull the blacks like that. Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. And then I'm going to push the greens a little bit. Let me let me just stretch this a little bit and give that and a little bit of brightness. All right, very good. Uh, now I didn't want to crop in too tight because there's not much detail left because of the distance and the ISO at 10,000. But uh, let's go ahead and export this. Everything looks good here. Okay, reset and do set that as the reference. All right, so here's the original on the left. Clearly, this bird is very far away because I think you were you were probably already zoomed in. You're zoomed in at 300. Probably could have went to 400, but any case, really good job on the exposure and the settings, uh, considering what you had to work with in terms of lighting. But let's go ahead and so I just want to give you an idea of the difference in the composition, and then let's do a split view and see how much detail could we actually recover. And it looks pretty good. It was mostly just getting rid of the noise. I might be able to do a little bit additional sharpening. Let me do that. Sometimes it's after I see the export, I'm like, oh, I can just do a little bit more here. So I'm going to go over here to the sharpening tools. Oh, wait a minute. I picked the wrong image. It's this, it's this one. Okay. So let me just do this. I'm going to pull the bokeh down to 0, push the details up, and I'm going to use the loop tool to really tone in and see what I'm getting. Let me add an unsharp mask. I'm going to push the radius out. Just give it a little bit more bite and a touch more. Yeah, let's go with that. So let me export that. I'm going to overwrite the previous one. Okay, reset. Use this as a reference. Okay, I'm not sure how much that helped when we zoom in. Just a hair. Just the edges are a little bit sharper down here. But when we look at the context of the whole scene, like if we looked at this full screen, I think that's a nice image. Yeah, that looks really good. All right. Let's do one more. And then I'll do some chat. Check the chat section. Okay, this one's from Lasse, and we have a fenced private pier, it looks like. Horizon is crooked, so we'll fix that. And let's put in a basic preset. And we need to temper the sky a little bit. Let me just straighten the horizon. That's just the first thing that's kind of bothering me. And I'm just eyeballing it. Okay. Yeah, that works. Right about there. So we just have this one cloud, and it's really high up. And then we have some red buoys again. There's a nice yellow right inside this canoe or fishing boat. We've got some highlights here to correct. So again, I'm looking at the exposure and thinking about the composition at the same time. So there's a nice balance here with this and these trees. So I want to keep that, but I don't necessarily need, I might just crop this part out. There's good framing with the grass, but I think I can chop off right in here. So I'm just going to do a preliminary crop to see if my idea makes sense. I'm not sure. I don't like this, these little, I mean, I can brush that out, but let me go try a 3 by 2 crop, and then we can come down to about here. Maybe just keep a little bit of that left side in. I lost this cloud though, but that's okay. We'll just keep that out of the frame. And now I'm trying to balance the horizontal elements. So we have the grass here in the lower third, sort of this canoe and fence in the middle, and then just the sky in the upper third. I guess that's okay. Uh, okay, from here, I want to temper the sky highlights and then bring in a little bit more, make the water a little darker, but then bring up the shadows here in the foreground and see if I can accent this yellow and these reds right in here. So let's just start with the sky. So we'll come up here. I'm going to move the dropper into the brighter area. And let's just pull the highlights in a bit and then add some clear view. I don't need any contrast, but what I might do, let's just take the blue areas, spread that out, and just give it a little bite or a little extra saturation. Okay, good. And the overall white balance is a little bit cool. I want to warm it up. So I'm going to do that globally. So I do that here in the color space. And let's try adding like 500. Yeah, that's better. This looks a lot better in here now. Okay. Now let's work on these shadow areas next, I guess. I want to come back to the color last. Let's try with a well, no, I think I can use a control line again. Let me just do a little bit in here. We're going to work with the darker area and tighten up the luminosity mask. About there. Let's just do a linear push. Yeah, that's better. Much better. Full 2 stops. You see where the mask is hitting. Yeah, it's hitting everything in here. Move the eyedropper just a bit there. Okay, let's see if we can adjust these trees. The trees, I might be able to use the auto mask. So let's start a new thing because these are very, very distinct. Yeah, very nice. Let's push the shadows. It's a little bit of a spill on the auto masking, but I'll come back to that. And it feels like, yeah, okay. So the auto masking, this is very common. It kind of spills over a little bit, as you can see in this corner. So I'll just grab the eraser tool and feather that 100% and drop the flow down. And whoops, let me make the brush a little smaller and just come in here like this. And we'll just kind of feather in like that. A little bit more here. Okay. And we'll just touch in here. Oops, too much. Sorry. Let me do it a little slower. All right, that's good. Maybe brush a little bit more back right here. Nah, forget it. We don't need to do that. Uh, push the shadows. Maybe a little clear view, some micro contrast, and just cool that off a bit. Let's try warming it up maybe a little more. Okay. All right. This spot here is bothering me. Let me just touch that right in here. Just give it a little push. Okay, good. All right. Oh, I got a race in the middle here too. Let me go back to that. Auto mask, race, and just kind of come down the middle. Oh, use a slightly bigger brush. All right, that's fine. I don't need to overthink it over here. Okay, let's work on the yellows here. Oh, this whole boat is yellow. Okay. I thought maybe it was just the inside. So let's see if we can bring this out. And we're going to tighten up the chroma. Let's just do a little bit of a push on the exposure. Okay, that's looking good. Now let's give it some saturation. I'm going to stretch this. Awesome, awesome. All right, good. Now we'll do the same thing for the reds. Just right in here. A little bit tighter on the chroma. Oops. All right, let's try red and a little brighter. Maybe a little push in the shadows. Some clear view and micro contrast. Okay. All right, I think that's good enough. Uh, Now the water, I want to make it a little less shiny and more a little darker. So we're going to put a linear gradient here. I'm just going to pick the brighter parts. And then let's give some clear view and pull the blacks in a bit. Okay. Now I'm hitting the Alt key and just dragging it. If I hit the Alt key, I'm giving it a negative linear gradient, so it's subtracting kind of below that line because it's affecting the grass line, which I didn't want. But this one, maybe I can do just sort of a linear. It's too much. Let's tighten up the chroma. There we go. Okay, let me come back to the boat. I think I need a little more help on the yellows here. A little push there, a little clear view maybe. Push the highlights. All right. So let me just kind of do a quick compare. Oops. Compare. Yeah, I think that's good. So let's end it there. Maybe temper the highlights on this one corner. Uh, just right here and here. Add some micro contrast to the deck just to bring out a little bit of that texture and then pull the highlights in. Maybe a little bit of clear view. Let me tighten up the chroma and luma by 5. Okay, good. All right, let's export that. Ah, oh, all right. All right. And let's reset. Well, we can compare to the output. Okay. So there's a before and after. So it was I could have done a little better job on these trees, but because I can still see like a couple of lines here I would fix. But other than that, I think this is pretty much it. Straightening the horizon, bringing out the yellow and reds here, and then tempering the water in the sky, and just cropping out these distractions up here. Uh, I think that looks pretty good. And we brought out a little more detail on the deck, or the pier, I should say. So if we do a split view, I think, we zoom in. I think this makes, yeah, that looks really good right in there. Okay. So there's the before, and then here's the after. And yeah, this part, this yellow is the most important thing, at least for me. All right. What else do we have? All right, next up is a house here. So that was 3 images. Let me hit the chat and then I'll go back to editing. Okay, so again, I see Roger's here with a question already. My question of the day, Rob, is when I shoot JPEG, should I leave the noise filter on the EM5 III in the off position? It depends. If you leave it off, there's still a little bit of noise reduction, particularly the chroma noise, the red, green, blue kind of speckles that you see in noise. Uh, so it's going to get rid of that, even if you have it turned off. And that will maximize the amount of detail that you retain in the JPEG. That said, if you're trying to deliver a very high ISO image straight out of camera to somebody, I would I would set it to low or medium at most uh, to temper some of the luminance noise, which is the grain. By setting it to low, you can temper some of that. But if you're in pretty good light and at very low ISOs, like below 1600, I would just leave it off to get rid of the chroma noise and retain the detail in the image, assuming you framed everything. If you have to crop in at all, uh, that's when you kind of get into trouble. But generally, I leave it turned off for my JPEGs. Because I'm usually shooting, I usually get a pretty decent exposure and good lighting. And too bad the Ring camera got a real story. Oh yeah. Ugh, yeah, that was rough. Yesterday I took some time to do some yard work, mowed the grass and I was out there actually doing some photography and I was like, you know, let me just clean up this area right here. And little did I realize there's a wasp nest where I was trying to clean out that area. There's a lot of leaves and brush there. So I was like, I'll just clean this area out. And then like within a couple of minutes, that's when that happened. Oh, and then Scott is here. Good morning. Uh, Good to see you, John. Shree, good to see you. William, good afternoon. Um, Little feedback on his shot. It says is good afternoon is from the Faroe Islands, taken in low light. That's why I could not go faster. Oh, it must be the puffin, right? Because that was pretty low light. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you did a good job on the settings. I would have done the same thing, more or less what you had there. Because I can see it was a low light shot because you're at 1/800th of a second with uh with that well, I can't remember exactly. But when I saw the settings, I said, "Oh, you're in low light, ISO 10,000, 1/800th of a second." Yeah, you did the right thing. Uh, because anything else would have been so noisy and not really recovered. Now, if you could fill the frame with that puffin, that's a different story. But because the puffin was only like 1 or 2 megapixels, probably not even 1 megapixel worth of data there, I think you did the best you can. Uh, and Henning is here. Good to see you. Uh, and Shakabe, good to see you. And Nurofen Plus works well. I don't even know what that is. I just took some ibuprofen. But thanks for the recommendation. The ibuprofen's working pretty well, as long as I don't laugh. Laughing is really painful. Fortunately, I've been watching like some really sad things on Netflix, like sad stories, making me cry. It's brutal. And Marco, good to see you. Let's see. And let's say, hopefully you're back. The clouds in the sky showing up in the water. Yeah, hopefully I captured that for your image. And you could have used the built-in ND filters. True. The grad ND, right? To kind of temper the sky a little bit. Uh, And so I'm thinking of buying a small travel flash like the Godox IM30 on a functional scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate it? I would say an 8. The main drawback to the IM30 is the AA batteries, right? So just keep a lot of spares for AAA. That uses AAA batteries. If we use AA batteries, we'd be in better shape. It's the AA battery. That's the key drawback. Secondary to that is the height of the flash over the top of the camera. It doesn't articulate and it's a little bit low profile. So if you're using a longer lens with a lens hood, you could potentially get a little shading in the bottom of the image on wide angle shots, like a 12 millimeters. So those are the two things you need to think about. Other than that, it's a great little flash. The recycle times are pretty decent for a AAA battery flash. The light output is excellent. It has a guide number of 15, and it's about as bright as you can make a flash that size, right? It's the flash I like to take with me everywhere. I've since updated to the Godox IT30, which is basically the same thing, same size, same light output, but it has the radio trigger built into it. So you can use it on and off camera wirelessly. But it costs twice as much. So and the IT30 also uses a lithium-ion battery, so I don't have to worry about the recycle times quite as much. Because on the AAA batteries, the recycle time is a little slow on the IM30. But you can get by because you're not going to be shooting at full power all the time. Most of the time, you're going to be shooting at half or a quarter, in which case the recycle times are instant, right? But with the IT30, the updated one, with the trigger and the OLED display, I think is worth twice as much to get the IT30. Uh, but for the money, if you can get a really good deal, like when it first came out, it was only like $30 for the IM30. That's kind of a no-brainer to me. It's a great little flash. There are other flashes that articulate, but they're not as bright. So I recently recommended the F2, which has it articulates in an upward direction. It also has its own wireless trigger built in, so you can use it off camera. Lithium-ion battery. Two major downsides to it, though. One, it's it's not as bright as the IM30. It's about half as bright, if not a little more. And the recycle times are very, very slow. Uh, so if you're doing single shots at half power, quarter power, you're okay. But you're going to be at like half power a lot of times because the light output's not that much. And the sync speed is not quite 1/200th of a second. If you shoot at like 1/250th of a second, you might get a little banding. So there's a few drawbacks to the Media F2, but the IM30 is an excellent flash and it works on everything. So if you don't mind it not articulating, then I think you'll be okay with that. And I was curious how Ben was doing. I haven't talked to him since that video. I talked to him right right before he published that video. Like he told me he had the video done, he was just going to publish it, but I haven't talked to him since. Uh, in camera, I have a choice of using sRGB or Adobe RGB. Which of these do you recommend? If you're processing your raw images, it doesn't matter. If you're shooting JPEG and you're going to post to Instagram or anything online, you want to choose sRGB. Uh, there is a workflow for Adobe RGB if you need to follow it between from editing on your computer all the way through to printing. There could be some workflow there where people like to use Adobe RGB. There's other workflows in astrophotography where certain software looks at the color space specifically when it's processing those images. So some software they do look at the Adobe RGB, but sRGB Adobe RGB applies only to the JPEG when you're looking at the image. In RAW, the sRGB Adobe RGB color space is sort of a line item in the EXIF data. And when it displays on a computer, it's going to look at that sRGB or Adobe RGB and display the appropriate color space that was tagged in the raw image. But the raw image of it in of itself does not have a color space. Raw image has, every color it can possibly capture, which is everything basically, right? Much wider than Adobe, much wider, probably closer to ProPhoto or whatever the biggest color space you can think of. A raw file has more. So color spaces are just a line item in raw images for displaying and editing. And just pick sRGB. When you're editing your raw images on your computer, the editing software manages the color space for you. So like DxO says, we're going to use the DxO wide gamut color space and apply that to your raw image, and then edit. And then when you're editing, you're going to be seeing whatever color space you calibrated your monitor for. I mean, it's a whole workflow. I don't know that Adobe RGB makes much sense anymore uh, for most people. But like I said, there might still be some specific workflows for Adobe RGB, but I'm not aware of any personally. It's not my thing, right? But yeah, just pick sRGB. And if you're editing your raw files, if you're using it straight out of Camera JPEGs and you're delivering online, sRGB. Otherwise, the colors will look weird because what's going to happen is, let's say you shoot a JPEG in Adobe RGB, post it to Instagram. Instagram is going to convert that to sRGB, and the colors are going to be all messed up. So it's best to, or it's going to try and display that in sRGB, and it's going to mess it up. So always sRGB. I mean, that's the short answer, but I tried to kind of elaborate a little bit for you. And yeah, that sucked. These stings on my fingers and arms, they still hurt a little bit. But what hurts the most is my ribs. And if I touch over here, I think the ibuprofen is starting to wear off. Uh, okay, I think I caught up. So let's go back to editing. Let's see. Next, we have a house here, a little Tudor house. I think that's the architecture style. Almost looks abandoned though, or more like a barn than a house. But it is a house because it's got a chimney. But it's just weird on the right side. There's no windows here. Usually the house will have a lot of windows around. So this looks like a barnish, kind of a barn over here, then looks like a house over here. Okay, so let's see. We have a driveway leading up. It doesn't look abandoned. It's just very clean. Landscaping's very, very clean here. I like the framing of these in this case because there's just enough. But this side here is just empty. It'd have been nice if there were some clouds here. But we just need to bring up the shadows and then maybe a little bit of a crop. We don't need all of this on the bottom. So let me apply my basic preset. And let's do a 3x2 maybe. And just come in a little bit this way. Maybe a 16x9. That might be too narrow, but let me see what that looks like. Yeah, that doesn't look natural to me. I think 3x2 is probably the way to go. I'm just going to brush out that little shadow there. Um, So let me drag this up, and I'm just going to tighten up the luma masking and just do a linear push and then a little bit on the highlights. And I'm going to add some clear view just to maintain some of that contrast and also some micro contrast. Okay, I think that looks good. Let me see. Yeah, that helps. It's a little bit muddy over here. Let me see. So I'm going to back off this, maybe do a little bit of a pull on the blacks. Okay, good. Uh, let's temper the highlights on the right side here. Tighten up the luma mask and just do a pull. Oh, too much. Maybe about right there. And we'll add some clear view again and some micro contrast because I want to bring out the textures. I may just do some additional things here for texture. Let me work on the windows. So whenever I do architecture, I always try to make sure I have the front door in the scene. Let me see if I can bring these windows up a bit. I just like the windows to be a little bit brighter. I think that's good. And then yeah, that could be the front door. I guess we're okay there. I want that window. Let's just come in a little bit. Okay. Add one here. Just kind of go all around these. This is a barn. I can see it now. This is all empty space. And then this might be a living area. I don't know. I'm very confused. Okay. All right, that's good. And the roof line could use a little bit of texture. So let's do just some tighten up the luma a bit. I want to try and separate some of the colors in the roof, maybe. So let's try a little clear view, maybe a little push on the exposure. And let me see what colors. I have basically gray and red. So what if I just push the reds? Maybe not that much. Push the reds and the blues. There's no blue in there. So let me do it with contrast, maybe some micro contrast. Okay. All right. This can be smaller. This can be smaller. This is not doing anything but causing a distraction. This can be smaller. And so can this. These look good. Let me get rid of that one and that one. Just let me come here a little tighter. Tighten up the luma. And just bring out the background. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Now I'm going to just temper the gravel here. Oops, I need a new one. I'm going to temper the gravel. So a little tightening on the luma and just pull the highlights in. Give it a little bit of contrast and clear view. And then let's do the same thing with the greens. These are kind of greenish yellows, so this may be a little tougher. Tighten up the chroma and just add some vibrancy or like so. Okay, and let me just get rid of this shadow down here. It's bothering me. Okay. And then globally, tiny push on the exposure. White balance looks good. Okay, let's call it. So export. Yeah, John, I know what you mean. About the chimney. It's weird. It's got a chimney here and one here. This looks like more for the house. This I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know. It's just kind of a interesting structure. Uh, what happened to my control points here? Did I hold on? Something is a little bit off. This control point. Let me redo this one. Okay, that's better. So I'll export that. And we'll do a side by side. Okay. So just a little tighter crop, going to 3x2 and then getting rid of this one shadow. But I think overall the balance is better. And then bringing out the texture and the roof. These windows, I need to temper these a little bit more. I would go back and just make these a little bit less bright because it stands out a little bit too much. But you can see right through this window to the other side. So if we actually look at it more full screen, I think it looks okay. But you can see the difference. I really wanted to bring out the textures and colors in the roof line. I think that looks pretty good. If we go way in again, yeah, bringing up the shadows, everything looks good. All right, very good. Um, let's go to the next one here. Oh, that's an interesting bird. So I'm going to apply a basic preset. Composition, I don't think we need to do much. I'm just going to just take a quick look at the cropping. Maybe just a little bit tighter like that. So I'm going to darken the background a little bit. I might be able to just do that globally because the bird is exposed properly. I'm going to bring this down just a bit and then go back and relight the bird in a local way. Look at this crop. Maybe pull off a little bit off the bottom too. Okay. Okay. So, oops, wait, wrong tool. There we go. That's what I want. So we're going to do eyes, beaks, and talons. So let me get to the eyes first and just spread a little bit outside. Give a little push on the shadows. Lots of clear view and micro contrast like that. And I'm just adjusting the micro contrast and clear view to taste. Okay, and we'll do the same for the beak, but with a new one. I just want the beak to be a little bit shinier. I tighten up the chroma this time. And just add some clear view and micro contrast. Maybe push the highlights a little bit. Yeah, that works. Okay, I think we can do the same thing on the talon. I'll just use the same control point. Ah, that's a little bit hot. Let me pull the highlights back. Don't need much here. Yeah, a little bit of a push. No. Okay. A little bit there. Good. And then I'm going to accentuate the blues here a little bit. Uh, so let me just get right in there and a little tighter on the chroma. And we'll just give a little vibrancy push like that. I might be able to do the same thing with the reds. Let me just, yeah, that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to darken this bottom left. We'll do that with a linear brush. I just have to watch where I put the eyedropper. I think right there is good. We'll tighten up the chroma mask this time. Oh, hold on. I gotta click plus and then come up here. All right, there we go. And then a little tighter on the chroma. Luma's okay. And then let's just do a linear pull. Let's see. Yeah, that works. All right. Now let me work on the bird one more time. This time I'm just going to use a larger thing with a tighter chroma. And what I want to do is just give maybe a quarter stop here in brightness. Maybe a third. Okay, about a third. Add some micro contrast. And I'm going to go back to the eye. I'm going to spread this a little bit more. Okay. Okay, I'm going to use a loop tool and just see where we're at. I did all that. Do I not have, why don't I have the lens profile? Oh, let me download that. Sorry. I was wondering why I said it should do a better job than that. So I gotta make sure I download the DxO module and then we'll go back to it. 1 second. Hmm. Come on. All right, there we go. All right, now let's go back. Lens sharpening. Let me get my loop tool. Okay, much better. It may be hard to tell on a stream, but I can see a difference here. Just increase that to its default. Pull back on the bokeh. Maybe give a touch of unsharp. Just a little bit more. How are we doing on the eye? There. No, I think we're good at 50. Let me just bump this up a tiny bit. Okay. All right. And then a quick, I can make the bird a little brighter. So I'm going to go back here. It was this control point. Yeah. So let's come up maybe a half a stop. Right about there. And then last but not least, I'm going to temper the highlight on this branch. I feel like I need a little more light on this side. Okay. All right, let's export that. And export. Let's see, JPEG, good. All right. And we'll do a comparison with the output and reset and a side by side. All right, so on the original one, I just cropped in just a little bit tighter and brought out the colors and then darkened the background a little bit. Not too much, very subtle, because the lighting's very soft. So I decided to not make too much of a stark difference between the bird and the background, just enough to separate it a little bit more using light. And then if we do a slider, I'll just punch in real close so you can see the difference. But yeah, you can see how soft, all the details are here with the noise. And then coming in, we brought out a lot of the details. You probably temper the highlights here a little bit more, but and then the blues and the reds, I wanted to just add a little bit more saturation there because they're a little bit soft. So that helped a lot too. So nice shot, John. Really nice. Um, that's this is the edited shot here. I think that came out really nice, and that's the before. And tempering the highlights on the branch also was really key to just the small details here. If you look here, now you can see the details in this stick versus before they were just clipped a little bit too much. All right, very nice. And we have some lightning here. Very cool. I'm going to do a little perspective correction. This is a long exposure, 2 seconds. Huh, I wonder if you use live comp or something for this, because the odds of you catching this perfectly in 2 seconds is pretty slim. And given the length of the trails here, this is a live comp shot. Very nice. Okay, so yeah, we have some bowing here, but primarily I'm just seeing a little bit of a perspective distortions here. I'm going to try the automatic perspective correction. No. Let me let me just tilt it. Something's not right. I'm going to back this off 50%. Okay, that looks good. When you apply 100%, this looks weird, right? So I sometimes I just do the automatic and then just back it off. And then I'm going to check the crop. I think we can do a little more. Back this off a little bit more. And I don't know if we really need that telephone pole at all. Let's try 5 by 4. That telephone pole is what's causing really this distorted look to me. Okay, I want to get a little more of the trails. That's fine. Okay, it's interesting. So I think we've maintained most of the important elements, maybe come in a little tighter. Okay, I want to see if I can bring out some of the drama in the sky. I'm going to start there, or at the clouds more specifically. So let's tighten up the luma mask and hit the clear view and contrast. I don't know. Some of it there. Right about there, I guess is okay. I'm going to push the highlights Let me back off the exposure and push the highlights again. I'm just trying to make the lightning stand out a little more. Okay, very good. Now, let's add a little bit of selective lighting. Uh, Maybe a little bit here and here and here. Just do a linear push. Okay, and then let's push the rest of these areas just a little bit less, though. Go back here, go back here. And then the cars, I think we can just touch up the tail lights a bit. With some clear view right here. Maybe a push on the highlights. Use some micro contrast. Okay. How about the windows? A little bit there and there and there. We can do the same thing on the houses. Might be too much, but it's not bad. Hold on. I like that little bit of glass work done in there. Just hit that one. Okay. Let's see how we're doing. Uh, all right. I think globally we could use a little more micro contrast. And then I'm going to, let me see if I can selectively do something here with the control line. I may take back this off, but I want to really darken the areas down in here, mostly by luminance. Something in that luminance level there. Turn off the chroma and just pull this in a bit. Move this over here. Okay. Okay, it's a little bit hot over here. So let's just make this smaller. Let's see what else we got. That looks good. That looks good. Okay, go back to my control line. Just trying to make the bottom part a little bit more. Just have a little bit more contrast because it's kind of a dark scene overall. I don't know if where's my control line here. And then globally, ah, not really. I think that's good. Uh, hold on. I think that's it. All right. Just white balance though. Let's see. Let me try a couple of different. I think the vivid profile there looks good. And then the white balance, set that to cloudy. Shade, a shot. Yeah, as shot looks good. And then we'll do a side by side. All right, so here's the original image on the right. I think, yeah, it's a little bit low contrast, and there's very, very minor perspective distortions here. This pole, even if I corrected perfectly the perspective distortion, this pole is going to forever make everything look a little bit off. So that's why I cropped it out. Uh, but I did want to keep this lamppost in, and the fact that the lightning's going right through it. But I think that all looks pretty good. Um, and then this little trail down here is interesting, right? I kept that in. And that's it. And just a little bit of sparkle on the tail lights here on the cars, and then bringing out the luminance of the housing, but maintaining, this area down in here to be very dark without, I was just trying to break up the scene a little bit in terms of lighting. So I think that works pretty well. Okay, let's go to the next one. And all right, we have another barn. Definitely some perspective distortions here. Let's apply a basic preset. I'm going to hit the perspective button here. Yep, that helps. Let's see what we cropped. So I like this wheel. I don't like this blue area. So I wonder, I hate to cut off that side, but I think right there, a line here, just a little tighter. So I'm going to accentuate this right corner, the clock, and the doors, and then bring out the sky. So we'll start with the easy one first, right? The sky. Oops. Let's just do a control line and tighten up the luma just a bit, and just clear view and micro contrast, and maybe temper the highlight a bit. Okay, and actually, how about warming it up? Just a hair. Okay. All right, let's fix the clock. Just I think clear view and micro contrast and a little bit of a push on the shadows. That will be good enough. A little push on the highlights as well. All right. And then this little wagon wheel and bowl sink. Nice little accent of yellow there too. We'll come back to that. Just need a little bit of a push on the shadows and micro contrast right there. Okay. And then let's do that bag here. It's probably just full of feeder. Give that a little bit of a push and some vibrancy. I just wanted to stand out. I think it makes a nice little accent between the clock and this sack. All right, let's bring out the textures on the doors and the bricks. Well, that sink could do a little more too. Let's just add a little bit extra bite to the sink. Okay. All right, so for the brickwork and the doors, um, plus, we'll do the bricks and the doors separately. I'll just tighten up the luma a bit and crank in some micro contrast and push on the highlights, maybe a tad on the vibrancy. Let's pull the vibrancy back and push the saturation. Yeah, that's good. All right, let's do the doors. So we'll just kind of tighten up the luma. Do this door. Okay, and same thing, some micro contrast right in there. All right, let me look at my crop again. Wonder if I can come in a little bit here. Yeah, I like. Hold on, I like that. All right. Okay. Globally, I think I can work with the rest of this on a global. Just maybe a slight push, about a third of a stop. Okay, we're done. And let's compare with the original. All right, so yeah, I just cropped in to get rid of this basically, and then kind of highlight what's going on over here. I think these are nice little accents in the corner. Um, and then the clock and the sink are nice. So yeah, I like everything there. And then just bring out the details on the clouds. So if we look at it more of a full screen, That's the before. And then the perspective corrections. Maybe, I missed this. I didn't see this light. Hold on. Let me let me just fix this one light. And make that yellow with some micro contrast and clear view. This blacks a little bit. And one more. I just like to turn the lights on. So this control point, we'll just kiss a little bit and oops. It was this one, right? Yeah. And then one more down here. Make it a little warmer, a little brighter. A new one, but not quite as much. Just a little bit, a little warmth. Uh, Spread this over here a little bit and over here. All right, all right, that's good enough. All right, so let me export that. All right, so I exaggerated the light a little bit, but you get the idea. Uh, let's just do a split. I think that looks pretty good. I overdid it here on the light, but yeah, that's the before, and then that's the after. And I think that looks pretty good. I would just back off this lighting a little bit. I did a little bit too much there. Okay. Okay, last one, and then we'll get to the edits that you guys did of my image plus edits of your own image because you want to, it's always fun to compare what you did versus what I did. Okay, so one from Jeff here. Let's see. I wonder a little bit tighter crop. Let me apply basic preset. And let me make sure I got the optics module. I missed the optics module on this one. Sorry about that. But this one we're good. It's not really necessary on that one because it's kind of a soft image. Uh, Meaning, it's low contrast with rain and stuff. But let's do maybe 5x4 on this one. And just come in a bit tighter. Now the question is, do we rotate this? Let me try. Where is it? But I don't see it. I'll just use a control R on the keyboard. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. So we just need to temper the background a little bit and accentuate the colors and the detail on the bee. So let's see. Man, this lens is so sharp, the 40 to 150. Ah, so let's do local and we'll select the eye. And we can go pretty wide on this. Micro contrast and clear view. Maybe even pull the blacks a little bit. And then let's let's work on the background a bit. I'm just going to make it darker. Let's tighten up the chroma and just start with the blacks and just pull that in. Okay. And then let's go into the flowers here. And tighten up the chroma again. And just do a vibrancy. And some micro contrast. And then the bee, let me give it just a little more light. And a little push on the vibrancy. And then we'll do a vignette. So we'll push that, invert it, chroma luma to 0. And let's move up here and just pull the exposure down. Move it over here. Let's be, whoops. Yeah, we just need it to be a little brighter. Okay, export that. Do a comparison. All right, so here's the original. Just need a little tighter crop. And then if we zoom in, you can see how nice and sharp this lens really is. It's really amazing. Um, great shot. Really good focus right there on the eye too. I think that looks really good. And just a quick slider. That's the before, a little bit soft, low contrast, I should say. Not soft in terms of sharpness. And then just a lot more pop here. Okay. Very good. So let me get to the chat, then we'll look at your images. Let me see. Hold on. Let's see if there were anything sent since. Yeah, there's quite a few here. So one from Will, one from Intrigue. Oh, I know where that is. That looks like Lee Sylvania State Park. All right. Oops. So what am I doing wrong here? We'll save. Ah, give me a second. My computer's being a little slow. Save that one from Will Tavares. And then the last one here from Paul. And Paul, you always do a very, very similar edit to mine. I hope I'm not having too much influence on you. Hmm. All right. Uh, okay. So let's go back here and see what came in. I think this is 1 second. I lost track of which one is which. So I think this is your edit, and we'll compare it to mine. Um, Interesting. I went much brighter on mine. Like I said, I kind of overdid it on the window a little bit, but uh, this is more natural to the eye, right? Good tempering on the highlights. Good job on the doors. And the windows, this is more of a creative choice. I kind of like this brighter window myself. A little bit too bright for me, uh but yeah, yours is a little bit more realistic and a little more natural. Mine looks kind of baked, relatively speaking. But that's, that like I said, that's a creative choice. But that's a very good edit. Very, very similar crop, and you also got rid of the shadow over here, uh, using a brush tool or something, right? But that looks good. And then let's see. I think I saw um hold on. We want to compare, I think. What is all this? Oh, these are the edits you guys did of my image. Why do I have two DxOs here? Okay. Let me see. This one. This was Shakab's edit of his own image. Excellent. So same idea, right? Kind of highlighting this, and I think I saw in the chat that you would have highlighted the lamp here, right? It's easy to miss because it blends in with the brick. But yeah, I think that's all you needed to do in this edit is just add it here. But yeah, good job on the doors and a little less work on the brick than I did, and pretty much same thing on the sky. So very good. And let's see. I think we can go back and look at what I did. That was my edit. So I kind of like mine a little better in terms of the brickwork. And I like what you did over here a little better than I did. And the sky, more or less the same. A little more contrast on mine. But yeah, looks good. Very, very good at it. What was your crop though? Let me look at your crop. Same exact crop. You got that corner off on the left side, but a much wider crop. 16 by 9 instead of I did 4 by 3 or something. All right. And then a couple of new ones came in. I'll do those real quick. So this one is from, let's see, I forgot the name already. So we have beautiful landscapes. So do I have the optics module for this? I got it for that one and the one from Intrigue. Okay. So let's apply a preset. This one's pretty straightforward for me anyway. Good level horizon. I'm going to do a wide. Let me just look at what I'm cutting out again. Yeah, I don't really need this. I'll just balance this a little bit right there and just go super wide. And let's use a control line. Uh, Maybe not. Maybe let's use control points to bring up. I'm going to tighten up the luminosity and just go across this horizon. And is there anything there? Yeah, a little bit. So let's do that and push. And then I need to just temper in here a little bit. I don't need much, but just enough to see what's going on. Crap. Let me start over. Maybe we'll leave that silhouette. There's just too little. Yeah, uh, there's something to be had though here. I need to do this because it's looking a little bit too baked. We'll leave that dark. Okay, good. And some micro contrast and clear view. Okay, and then the water will make just a hair darker. We don't need to do much here. We'll just add clear view and a little bit of a pull. Oops, on the blacks. Okay, and then the sky, we'll use another new control line. And let's just pick somewhere kind of neutral. Hit the clear view and micro contrast. Maybe a slight temper on the highlights. And then let's just brighten this up a bit. Go back here, a little more tempering here. All right. Temperature wise, maybe just a hair cooler or warmer. think we're okay on white balance. Maybe try a different. Yeah, natural is fine. Let me try and accentuate this area here. Very tight. Just add a little more bite over here. Just a little bit more. That's not going to work. All right. Let me go back to these originals. I'm going to get rid of this one. Not all of them. Maybe just expand one. Okay. All right. Let's see how we're doing. All right. I need to just temper this one and this one. Then back to the clouds. We can do the same thing. Right there. Maybe there. All right. I'm going to call it there. Wait for that to finish processing. The main thing about this image is really just the crop. Everything else is pretty straightforward, right? Just increasing contrast and pushing highlights in certain areas. Did this export or not? Oh, there it is. So, yeah. Again, just personal taste. I don't like a lot of negative space in my scene, so that's why I went with a very wide crop. And then just particularly right in the clouds here and over here, I wanted to separate the highlights a little more and just make it brighter. Uh, the landscape here itself, the trees and this where all these houses are, yeah, that it'd have been nice to get a little more out of that, but I think we're okay as is. So yeah, it's really right in here where and over here, the sky. So that's the original, and then there's the edit. I really wanted to, because there was a lot of drama going on up in this area here, and then a little bit here. So that's why I kind of spent a lot of time on that, and then not so much on the water or this landscape. Okay. Um, oh, hey, Will, I'm glad you like that edit. Give you some ideas at least, right? Uh, but again, everything I do is very subjective, so I think that's it. Oh, and then this one was sent in, but it's already been edited. But this looks like Lisavania State Park. Eric is local to me, so that's how I kind of recognize this place. But yeah, I like the crop. Very good balance. Beautiful day. I would have probably made it a little bit warmer overall because it's just a little bit too cool. So the only change I would make here is just shift it a little warmer so the sand looks. Oops, let me turn off. That's exaggerated, but yeah, I'd have probably done just a little bit warmer. So that's before and that's after. I think being a little warmer makes it a little nicer. Uh, this stick here, yeah, I'd crop that out. I'd crop in a little bit tighter. Maybe, I mean, I like the wide crop, but I would have done it more like this and just a hair inside on that side. That's it. So, um, if we just do a comparison, that's yours and that's mine. But, it's a JPEG that's already been edited, so I don't have a lot of wiggle room, but I think that works. Okay. Um, Let me go back to one. Oh yeah. So sometimes I give you guys my image to edit, right? So here's my original raw image. We'll set that as the reference. And I was using a polarizer and I was stepping down. So that's why I'm getting a little vignetting in the corners on this shot because I stepped down, to a 58 millimeter step ring. I was using, I think, my 12 to 40 Pro, right? Yeah, 12 to 40 Pro, which has a 62 millimeter ring size, and I stepped down to 58. So that's why I'm getting this vignetting. Not a big deal, because I'm gonna crop in wide anyway on my edit. So let's see what you guys did. So the first one here from Lasse, awesome crop, and good job on the sky. Everything looks really good here. Yep, very good edit. I would have made the water a little darker, but other than that, everything looks good. And then here's one from Paul. Paul seems like he kept the original 4x3, but just took out the vignetting. Really good work on the sky, though. Yeah, and good job on the water. I would have brought the sand up a little brighter to be closer to the sky, right? And a few highlights on the rocks. I like that. And really good crop following this line. When I originally composed this image, I was trying to get this corner to come in to lead the eye around and then back. And there's a little tiny lighthouse here. This is Sandy Point Beach Park. Didn't quite work. So I ended up not using this image, for my Instagram and Flickr, but I just put it out there to see what you guys would do. Um, oh, this is really cool. So this is a conversion to like an oil painting. I love this. And the little boats put in. It's kind of inverse though, right? But yeah, I like it. I like it. I feel like what did I download this 3 times? I did. So yeah, these are all the same, right? Yeah, same. I accidentally downloaded it 3 times. That's awesome. That looks pretty legit too, doesn't it? Almost a little bit. you can tell a little bit it's a digital conversion of an oil painting, but it looks really good. I like it. So I'll give you an idea of what I did. Um, it's not too different than what Paul and Lasse did, really. Did I put on my Flickr? Probably. Yeah, I this is what I did. I ended up using a different picture. So I walked over to the right and decided to have the rocks lead in directly. And I just got rid of the beach line because, you guys know I don't like lots of empty space. So I picked a different image, and the post processing, though, is pretty much the same. I tempered the water here, but I kept the light right here very strong between here and here. And then, of course, I saw Paul do a very similar thing on the rocks where he sort of either through micro contrast or control points added some accents here, kisses of light. And then let me look at Paul's again. Yeah, Paul did a very similar thing on the rocks over here. But this blurring, this work with the blur, that needs a little more work. It's not a very smooth transition from the out of focus to what's in focus. So a little more feathering here, maybe. And Shikabe did a very similar job. Uh, very, very similar to my edit. Just there wasn't quite as strong a light over here like in the image that I ended up using. But yeah, I'd say this is my favorite of the three that came in. I like the orange, very different, very strong orange. And then going back to Lasse's is the most realistic. Then Paul, this blurring though, that's what's messing this up. Everything else looks good, but this blur that you did, it's a little weak. And Scott definitely is the most creative. All right. So, oh, I see Juan is here. Good to see you. And let me go back to the chat and see. Lasse says, nice edit. Um, okay, thank you, Lasse. I appreciate it. And Lewis is here. Like the texture you brought out in the wood frames. Okay. Yeah, I always try to bring out texture, in wood and stone, things like that when it makes sense, right? And yeah, it's a shame it was partially blocked. Yeah, the barn shot. Okay, and then Shakib I didn't see the light. Yep. And Anthony says, with DxO Pure 5, when you go to pre-develop, there's a choice of low, standard, strong, and extra strong as choices. Okay. Uh, I've been using DxO Pure 5 for the last 3 weeks before putting my photos in Photometer, thinking about eventually getting Lightroom. Okay. And have not completely made up my mind if I'm going with Lightroom or Photolab. Unfortunately, Photolab 8 does not have any stitching tools in software right now. True. And what stitching software are you using? Okay, I'm trying out a couple different. I'll go over those. And I've heard that Huggin is highly recommended, but I went to download it. Mac did not recommend it. Okay. Uh, I wouldn't worry about it. If you're downloading from the right place for Huggin, and I can't remember what that was, but you should be fine. And then Juan is asking, okay, let me get to just a couple of quick ones. Is that star in the cloud over the right side? I don't think so. I don't see it. Yeah, sorry. I doubt any stars would show anyway because I'm in such a light polluted area. Um, and thank you very much for your edits despite of your predicament. Hope goes well. Oh, sure, sure. Everything will be fine. I just have to just probably for the next probably a week, I'm gonna have to take some ibuprofen every day, which I'm not a fan of. I'm gonna try and grin and bear it as much as I can without any medication. So let's talk about pano and stitching that Anthony's bringing up. So I do use the Lightroom stitching time to time, but it's not as good as uh, Huggin, even to be honest. And once you get a good workflow for Huggin, you can get better results with it. But the key is always in the workflow in the field, right? Using a nodal point, keeping your horizon level, exposure, all of the things in workflow for panoramics that I'm sure you're competent at. So I won't get into detail, but in the field work is most important. Then it doesn't matter. Lightroom, Huggin, all of them will be able to stitch these pretty well. But when you have stitching errors, I found Huggin sometimes does a better job, sometimes Lightroom. But either way, I would not buy Lightroom because it has stitching. Assuming all things being equal, let's say the stitching software in Lightroom is just as good as anything else you can get free or pay for a third party. That would not be the reason I go with Lightroom because at least for me, right, I have the Lightroom Photoshop pack where Lightroom and Photoshop come, I pay like 120 bucks a year. And I use it primarily not because of the stitching and HDR. It has a lot of great tools, but primarily for the layering in Photoshop. So if you want to get into layering and exposure blending and everything else that Photoshop has to offer, it's worth 120 bucks a year. The AI stuff, I'm kind of neutral on. You have to pay extra now if you want to use it for more than 100 credits, and the credits vary. Yeah, that's annoying, but it does have some great AI and selection tools and removal tools. It has a lot of tools that I use in my professional architectural type work that it's very difficult to do if not impossible, in Photolab. Particularly the removal tools and selective exposure blending with layering. That's where Photoshop just crushes it, okay? And the workflow is pretty straightforward. That said, I don't know what your application is. If you don't need those tools that I talked about, like, I imagine, you're doing this, you're an enthusiast hobbyist, right? You're not doing professional work where you would need these tools to make it perfect for the client. Uh, but as a hobbyist enthusiast, it's more about the journey and the, phototherapy and all that. And removing distracting objects and things like that are not quite as critical because it's not something you have to deliver to a client. It's just part of the image. So I'm just justifying, and I shouldn't do this, but I'm justifying on what I'm trying to justify what I think uh, your needs and wants are, which I shouldn't. But I would imagine that uh, minor distractions are very easy to remove in Photolab or Lightroom. But Lightroom, when it's very like if I have a trash can sitting in front of the driveway, Photoshop does an excellent job of removing a trash can and trash out of the front of a driveway, for example. Photolab, I have a real hard time. So that's one tool. Layering and exposure blending. I deal with a lot of high dynamic range scenes, very bright windows, very dark furniture and office furniture and shiny things and commercial properties. And I have to do a lot of exposure blending by hand. and I have to do that through layering. Impossible to do in Photolab. So these are the tools that if you think you'll be using a lot, you definitely need to go with Photoshop and just use Pure Raw 5 as a preprocessor because regardless, I pre-process optical corrections and noise reduction always in Photolab 8. In your case, it might be Pure Raw 5. I always do that before I do anything in Photoshop and Lightroom. So maybe Pure Raw 5 might be the solution for you. And then just get the Photoshop Lightroom combination for 120 bucks a year. At least that's what it cost me. I don't know what it might cost cost where you're at, but uh it makes a lot of sense if you want to use the removal tools, the AI tools, the layering, and probably a million other things that I'll never use. Photoshop is by far and away a very, very powerful tool. Now, if you want to talk about just panel stitching, Huggin will do a good job most of the time. It runs into problems when you don't, when your work in the field is sloppy, Huggin's going to have a little hard time, okay? And Photoshop might be better at it, but sometimes Huggin's better at it. I haven't quite figured out which algorithm is working better than the other in what circumstances, but both of them have problems if the work in the field is sloppy. Two softwares that are really good and not terribly expensive that do a good job. One is, uh, let me just pull it up. Um, a, okay, this software, Kolar Autopana Giga, it's free. This thing rocks. This is really good. Okay, much better than Lightroom and a lot more tools. Autopana Giga. So if we Google that, it's not being updated anymore, but this is what you want. So I'll give you the link to this. Just call it APG. Okay. This is really good. Uh, Another software that I think is even better, but it's paid. It's like 80 bucks or something. Um, Panorama Pro. I haven't bought it yet because my field work is getting better. My workflow in the field is better, so I don't really need it anymore. I used to need it when my workflow was sloppy in the field, but I don't really need it anymore. But it's called Panorama Pro. Is this it or not? No, that's not it. Where is it? Let me look it up on my thing here. Panorama Studio Pro. Sorry. This software is excellent. And this cost you want to get the pro version, $99. And they kind of list out the differences between the two, but ultimately you want to get the pro version. Uh this software, it's like I could have sloppy work in the field and somehow it does everything right. I mean, I only used the trial version for a while and everything I threw at it at the time, it just kicked it out like this and it's fast. I mean, it's like seconds, it'll stitch like a multi-row panel together in like 5 or 10 seconds. It's fast and it's really accurate. The interface is pretty straightforward. You can download a free trial, but I'll give you the link to that. I, but there's that. Okay. So there's the two. Um, I'm not sure if you're still here, Anthony, but those are the two you want to try. Uh, Hugging is great. Don't worry about it. Virus and things like that. If it does worry, then go for the Auto Panic Giga. Read carefully the installation instructions. It's a little tricky for the Auto Panic Giga. That's really good. But the very best one I've ever used is this Panorama Studio. And I only used the trial version because, like I said, my field work is better now, so I'm fine with the free Auto Panic Giga. That's kind of my favorite now. Uh, but I used Huggin quite a bit before going to Auto Panic Giga, and now I don't even worry about Panorama Studio 4 anymore. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I think that's it. So you guys, I will be back on Sunday, right? Yeah, Sunday. It might be a little later though. A couple hours later than I normally do this Sunday for my normal photo chat. I'm hosting a photo walk over in Alexandria. So I might be a little late Sunday, but I'll be back Sunday, God willing. I don't get attacked again by the killer wasp. Man, this is starting to hurt again. I need to grin and bear it. But you guys have a great weekend, great rest of your day. Eat healthy, exercise, uh, think happy thoughts, and keep shooting. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining me today.